Hey, I think we're recording. What I want to do is talk about the words that hopefully you've been studying over the last week or so. And those come from a list that I'm calling Phobia and Phile. Remember, phobia, something you're scared of. Phile, something you really love. So what I want to do is just take a look at those words, alphabetical order, give the definition, maybe put it in a sentence or type of situation that we might use that word. Maybe one you'll find on the test. I don't know. So the first one right up here, acrophobia. I'm hoping without even looking at the definition, you hear phobia. So you're thinking, okay, fear of something. And you can see this little puppy dog. Oh, he's high up. Luckily, just a stuffed dog. But that is the fear of heights. So very common. A lot of people are acrophobic. That is the adjective we would use to, excuse me, to describe a person who is afraid of heights. They are acrophobic or they have acrophobia. The next one, arachnophobia. Arachnophobia, quite common. Fear of spiders. Not sure if you have acrophobia. I'm not a big fan of spiders. I guess it depends on the spider. If it was a huge, like desert spider, actually, my sister owns a camp on a lake and they have what's called dock spiders that live in their dock. They're huge too, near the water dock where they leave their boat. I have a little bit of arachnophobia when I'm around those type of spiders. That's for sure. Number 3 is bibliophile. Bibliophile. When you see phile, I'm hoping you're thinking love of something. Biblio. It comes from the Latin. And in fact, in French, a bibliothèque is a library. So biblio means book. So this is someone who loves books. I hope you are a bibliophile because in English class, we read every day. So hopefully you're a bibliophile. If you are, you probably really like this class. If you're a bibliophobe, see, that's not one of our words, but you could change it. If you fear books, you would have bibliophobia. I hope you don't have a fear of books. But if you do, you probably hate this class. The next one is pretty fun to say in my book. I feel this is pretty fun to say. Cacophony. Cacophony. And this is just a loud group of sounds. You can see that picture there, a band who isn't very good and they're all playing their instruments at a different time. That might be a cacophony. So it's a bunch of different sounds that are really annoying, a cacophony. Man, let's say there's an earthquake. Hopefully we never experience that. But if the earthquake was shifting the room and everything was falling off the shelves, well, that would be a cacophony. Probably not a lot of fun to hear. The next one, chronic. Chronic means happening for a long time. We sometimes will say this about pain. Oh man, I have chronic headaches, meaning I get them a lot. Chronic back pain. Maybe someone is chronically late for class, means happening often, and that would not be good. Hopefully you're not chronically late. Confide, the next one. Confide. It is a verb, something you do, and that is when you tell someone something very personal. You confide in them. You confide in them. So maybe you have a best friend. Hopefully you do. One that you can share anything with, and you could confide in that person. Or your parents. Most teenagers don't confide in their parents, but hopefully you are one of the rare ones that feel comfortable confiding to your parents. The next one is foresight. Foresight. So the way I think of this is like before foresight. And you can see this person right here has a crystal ball. They are looking into the future. So if somebody could literally look into the future, they would have some pretty good foresight. But, that's not very common. But you could say, man, just knowing something is going to happen before it happens. That means you would have really good foresight. Let's say you have a big project coming up on Friday, and on Monday, you start thinking about how you're going to go about finishing that project. You have pretty good foresight. Like, it's not going to sneak up on you, that project. You are going to plan ahead for something that's you think is going to happen in the future. So somebody my age at 45, if I had good foresight, I would be planning for my retirement. Unfortunately, or fortunately, my retirement isn't probably for another 20 years. But if you're planning for something that you think is going to happen, it means you have good foresight. Okay, hope that. Maybe this is a bit early for you, but if you're thinking about college, trying to get those good grades, and maybe you don't have to go to college. I'm not saying you have to, but a lot of people that is a goal. So maybe you're starting right now with getting those really good grades, coming to school every day, coming to school on time. You're not chronically absent. Means you have good foresight. You're planning for the future. The next one, fortnight. No. And no, for English class, it's not a game, console game, mobile game, PC game. No, a fortnight. It's kind of rare these days. It was rare before the game came out, but it means a 2-week period. I think more common in England, I think. But it's good to know. It does come up in literature sometimes. It definitely comes up in Shakespeare. If in high school you ever read Shakespeare, you might come into contact with fortnight. But I get paid once a fortnight. Like, not many people would use that term, but I get paid every 2 weeks. So fortnight, a period of 2 weeks, quite rare. And I don't know, fort usually means strong. When you see something like a fortification, fortified, here it doesn't mean strong. I'm not sure where this word comes from, but just know a fortnight is a 2-week period. And when you get a job, you might be paid once a fortnight, every 2 weeks. The next one, a heliophile. Helio comes from the Greek, meaning sun. Phile, we know, love. So this is someone who loves the sun. Maybe they really love going to the beach and getting all that sun. They might have a lot of cancer. Heliophiles might have cancer, but also a heliophile might be a person. There are a few of these who have enough money who will travel the world to see solar eclipses. Those things are rare, but if they have enough money, they might travel the world chasing solar eclipses. Right. Hope that one helps there. Lucid. Lucid. This means your mind is clear. Lucid. Sometimes you have lucid dreams. Like, they are so clear, it feels like you're awake. We refer to older people sometimes when they're losing their mind, their memory isn't so great. They would not be lucid. We would refer to older people who are lucid, meaning they have all of their memories. They're really still pretty sharp, lucid. If you're going into surgery, right, you want to be put to sleep. You want to feel no pain. You do not want to be lucid while people are operating on you, I would think, right? You want to be put under. You don't want to be lucid. I hope you're not one of these people, but necrophobic. I mean, it's not the worst thing, I guess. Better than being necrophile, meaning you love death. I would worry about you there. But if you have an irrational fear of death, that might mean you can't, like leave the house. You're so afraid something is going to happen to you. So necro, anytime you see that, it means death, dead, necro. Necrophobic, you probably hate Halloween. That is a holiday where there's just like death all around, skeletons, ghosts. Necrophobic, fear of death. Necrophile, you love death. That's troubling as well. But I hope that you can live a normal life without just this fear of dying all the time. Must be a horrible way to live. Yeah. Real quick story about necro. How do we say it? So in San Francisco, it's extremely expensive city. And it's so expensive that like there are no cemeteries in San Francisco anymore. You have to be buried somewhere else. If you die in San Francisco, you have to be buried somewhere else. And there's a necropolis, a necropolis. Acropolis means city in Greek. And so a necropolis is a city of death. Necropolis. It's basically very few people live in this city. I forgot the name, right outside of San Francisco, but it's like hundreds of thousands of people are buried there. It's a whole cemetery of cities, and it's called a necropolis. Necropolis. Necro. Retrophile is the next one. Retro meaning back in time. Retro. At the end of a year, there's often a retrospective. I think we've talked about that in this class. Retrospective. Remember spec like spectacles. Spec meaning to look. Retro meaning to look back. So in December of 2020, there were a lot of retrospectives about the coronavirus, about probably all the cancellations, maybe the protests during the summer. Retrospective. That's when you look back on time, often at the end of the year. If you're a retrophile, maybe you love listening to music on vinyl. Maybe you like records. You don't like streaming. You would be a retrophile. If you've ever seen the show The Goldbergs and you really like that time they're living in the 80s, and sometimes you wish you could go back and live in the 80s, you might be a retrophile. Retrophile. If you think the 1970s or the 1980s are the best time to live, you're probably a retrophile. Up top here, that's number 13, rigid, very stiff, rigid, not flexible. So I hope that you don't have teachers that are rigid, that aren't very flexible. With me, if you turn in an assignment late, well, it's all good. I don't take any points off. I'm pretty flexible in that respect. But if I was rigid, I would say, no, hey, due date here, turn in late, I don't count it, 0 points. I'm not that. I'm a little bit more flexible. So I think most of the time you like people, teachers and parents who aren't exactly rigid. Super strict maybe would be a close synonym. Rigid. You want a little bit of flexibility. Rules can be rigid, not very flexible. Speeding. I mean, if you're going like 90 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour zone, I don't think the police officer who hopefully stops you and saves a lot of other people's lives, I don't think they're going to be very flexible. I think they're going to be pretty rigid. And I think they might say to you, yeah, we're going down to the station. Get my handcuffs, cuffing you, putting you in the back. Yeah, you're coming with me. It's crazy. You can't go 90 in a 25. They're not going to be very flexible with you. The next one is a tariff. Think of this one like a tax. So it's extra money that has to be paid, and tariffs are usually put on goods coming from another country. And why the US government does that is it tries to get Americans to buy American goods. So let's talk about Japan. Japan is known for making really good cars. In fact, my wife and I own 2 cars from Japan. Yeah, we own Toyotas. They're very good cars. But if a toy, and sometimes Toyotas are actually made in the United States, at least some of the parts are. But anyway, let's say there is a car from Japan. It's a Toyota, but it's usually more than one. But let's say there's one Toyota car made entirely in Japan and it comes over to the US. Well, the US has cars made here too, Ford, Chevy, American cars. So when that Toyota comes over, the American government might put a tariff on that. So maybe it's $10,000, but the Ford is $12,000. So there might be a tariff put on that car to make people think a little bit about buying a Japanese car or an American car, because that tariff is an extra tax added on. Probably the government gets it. I don't know who gets tariffs for the most part. I think it might be the government. I think the government gets most of the money. So that would be a tariff. When goods are brought into this country, oftentimes a tariff is put on them just so Americans have to think, okay, what do I want to buy? Do I want to stick with American? Oftentimes at least the Japanese cars are often made a little bit better and they're a little bit cheaper. They might last a little bit longer. Just my opinion, though. Just my opinion. You may have some parents that are fiercely loyal to their Chevys, to their Fords, but I kind of like the Toyotas. And the last one, Umbraphile. Umbraphile. Like we talked about with heliophiles, those people love the sun. And sometimes they will follow eclipses. But for the true lovers of eclipses, we have umbraphile. Umbra also comes from the Latin, meaning shadow. Think about an umbrella. Umbrella. You put it up, you might be blocking yourself from the rain, but if there is a lot of sun, you might see somebody carrying an umbrella to create a shadow around them so that they don't get skin cancer. Yeah, skin cancer is not very fun. Heliophiles, remember, if they're always chasing the sun, going to the beach, yeah, put your sunscreen on. All right, that is our 15 words here for the next week. Of course, if you have any questions about them, let me know. Hope this helped. I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and then I'm going to hit the end. So I'm not recording anymore. Hope this helps. See you next time.